Israel and its tensions with Iran are still there. Whether Netanyahu had this attack against Iran for personal political purposes, or whether Benjamin Netanyahu had this attack as a real Israeli interest to attack Iran. Successive Israeli governments have been talking about potentially attacking Iran. Now we have none other than the previous Israeli genocide minister Yoav Gallant sending a letter to the Iranian supreme leader Ali Khamenei, in what is, in short, like a pathetic attempt of psychological warfare against Iran, saying that, we know where you are totally exposed, we know who you talk with, we know all of your allies, we know your next moves, and it's better for you to accept the reality that we know everything about you and we can target you everywhere you're at and your whole nuclear program and ballistic missiles, and don't try and attack Israel. It's better that you focus on Iran and Iranian economic situations and development, and don't focus on attacking Israel. Why is that coming from Yoav Gallant, and why at this time? And what is Israel trying to gain out of it? Well, firstly, Yoav Gallant is a wanted war criminal. He's the genocide minister, whether he agreed with Netanyahu or not, a despicable, abhorrent terrorist. Yoav Gallant, who massacred tens of thousands of Palestinian people under Benjamin Netanyahu, whether he agreed with him or not on the progress of the war. It ended with his resignation, of course, but that doesn't mean that this man is in any way, shape, or form better than Benjamin Netanyahu. And he is a man who also supported this attack against Iran, like many opposition leaders who call themselves liberal and democratic and progressive, supported this attack, this Israeli aggression against Iran. Secondly, Israel's clearly still very, very worried about Iran. Why would the previous Israeli genocide minister, who called himself the defense minister, that's the official name, but the actual name is the genocide minister or the war or aggression minister, something of the sort. They're worried about Iran because they know very well that Iran might be surprising them with any attack, and they know very well that they don't have an answer to the threats that are coming from Iran. Israel knows very well that what they have done in Iran in their 12-day war with them, it came with the opposite results. What it has done is that it brought the Iranian people together, whether they oppose the establishment or not. It brought resilience. It showed a lot of solidarity in the streets from millions of Iranians with their country, with their state. Israel saw very clearly that they cannot take down the establishment, that they cannot take down the Iranian capabilities. And Israel saw very well that despite all of their attacks and them having the direct assassinations against top senior figures in Iran, that they are unable to shake the establishment. Whenever they had a person who they assassinated in Iran, they had a replacement very quickly, and Iran was able to continue and conduct attacks against Israel for 12 whole days in a way that only escalated time after time after time. The most fierce attack, and one of the most fierce attacks against Israel that happened in the 12-day war with Iran, was the attack in the final day. This means that Israel is very well aware that they haven't been able to take down Iran, and Iran's will and determination, because what is this about eventually from Israel and the arrogant powers who support Israel? It's about dictating the will of other people. They dictate the will of their people in manipulation, propaganda, fear, but they try and dictate other people's decision making. They don't want countries to be independent. They don't want countries to have free will. They don't want countries to make their own economic decisions. They don't want countries to make their own societal conditions, have their own way of governing, for example, and they don't want countries to have independence in relation to who arms them or who they side with or who they partner with. Israel, backed by arrogant powers, they want to preserve this unipolar world, and they want to hinder any prospect of more rising powers. Because at the end of the day, Israel exists there and is still supported by an establishment, by a Western establishment that is predominantly controlled by the United States establishment. So the arrogant powers, they're representing that will there. And this attack against Iran wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the countries that support Israel. Whether they agreed with the timing or not, whether they had certain disagreements or not, in general, in principle, if they accept that fact, they agree to the fact that Israel can attack Iran and Iran must not respond. Like they always speak about Israel's right to defend itself, and that right of self-defense not even existing or even mentioned in relation to the Palestinian people, but the opposite. You have a demonization of the Palestinian resistance, and they criminalize the Palestinian resistance, and they even criminalize Palestine supporting groups. They try and intimidate them, they try and have more legislation against them, and they constantly have new rules or laws to affect the movement, which is in essence a movement that is out there expressing itself primarily. We're not just talking about a cause, we're talking about freedom of expression. But of course, if you talk about the Palestinian case, that's just an example of it. That the core principle here is people having the right to say what they think and protest against certain things that they disagree with. So they want to strip the people of these normal, basic human rights so that they can turn them into obedient servants who are only engaging in very basic worldly activities that have nothing to do with freedom or justice or causes, anything of morals or principles or anything of substance or meaning. But Israel realized, and Israel is, of course, a representation of this Western establishment arrogance in this area, alongside, of course, some of the puppet regimes in the region too. They realized that they cannot strip Iran and the other people of the region, by the way, who still confront and face and express to, not just in West Asia, but globally as well, and that they're going to continue doing so. And that Iran represents something bigger than what they wanted to appear to be representing. Iran is representing a front of global resistance against this arrogance, not by aggression, not by anything negative, but by simply saying, this is who we are. And they, of course, have their own way, and you might disagree with them on certain things here and there, not a problem, but they follow their own will, and they have been paying the price for standing up against arrogant powers led by primarily the United States establishment. Therefore, Israel is resorting to this psychological warfare against none other than the Iranian supreme leader himself, who confirmed, by the way, that this was, according to reports, he confirmed that this was a pathetic attempt of a psychological warfare coming from Israel due to the lack of accomplishment on the ground from the Israeli forces against them, even with the support of the United States in that attack against Iran.